Please forgive my rudeness. You seem to be in a difficult situation, so I brought you inside first. Tiuran said as she released her arm. Talia looked around the dimly lit interior with a bewildered expression. In the narrow space that appeared to be a kitchen, various household items were scattered here and there. There were shelves packed with earthenware and wooden bowls, a hearth leaking a faint glow, a dining table that was old but neatly arranged, and wooden stairs leading upstairs. It was clearly a house where someone actually lived. She turned her gaze back to Tiuran. What are you doing in a place like this? Well. Tiuran, who rarely ever hesitated, dragged out her words awkwardly before adding, I came here to deliver some medicine at the request of someone I know. Talia narrowed her eyes. What kind of medicine? It's a somewhat sensitive kind of medicine. So it's difficult for me to tell you. With an embarrassed smile, Tiuran subtly changed the subject. By the way, the people outside don't seem to have any intention of dispersing. It would probably be best for you to wait here for a while, until the commotion dies down. Instead of answering, Talia looked outside through a gap in the shutter. Dozens of people were surrounding the building in layers. Even passers-by had been joining them one by one, making the crowd seem to have grown even larger. Talia closed the shutter with a displeased expression. If she went outside like this, it was obvious that she would be surrounded by people again. Do they all really have that little to do? It seems everyone is excited since this is a festival that only happens once in a while. Besides, with your highness being so beautiful, it's only natural that quite a commotion would break out. Talia blinked at the straightforward compliment before awkwardly lowering her eyes. Today, she was wearing a white silk outer garment over a blue skirt embroidered with a vine pattern. A long piece of pale blue fabric bearing the same pattern was wrapped around her shoulders, while a necklace adorned with colorful gemstones given to her by the residents hung around her neck, and a metal ornament decorated with dangling bells was fastened around her waist. It was an outfit commonly worn by wealthy women of the East when going out, but her unusually fair skin, long blonde hair, and even the flowers adorning her head were certainly enough to attract people's attention in a region where such features were rarely seen. On top of that, she had been walking through the streets with Khan, so it was only natural that the festival goers, excited by the atmosphere, would become ecstatic as though they had discovered some rare spectacle. Talia cleared her throat for no particular reason. Flattery won't get you anything. I was merely stating the truth. The entire city becomes abuzz whenever your highness comes outside the castle walls. Tiuran replied calmly before glancing out the window and adding, until now, they could only sneak glances from afar, but it seems everyone found the courage to approach you today. I think this commotion is going to last quite a while. Realizing that there was a subtle note of concern in her voice, Talia's expression darkened. The faint uneasiness she had felt in her chest returned as she recalled the enthusiastic cheers that had erupted from the crowd moments ago. The people caught up in the festival's excitement might have shouted those words without much thought, but the church might react sensitively. In the worst case, they might even find fault with her for encouraging Tiuran ideology. Please, I just hope this doesn't lead to any troublesome problems. As she rubbed her throbbing head and let out a small sigh, Tiuran lowered the curtain over the window and said, First of all, I think it would be best to bring Khan inside. If you leave him outside any longer, more onlookers will gather. Talia immediately opened the front door. At the same time, Khan, who had been crouching in front of the threshold, instantly raised his head and began wagging his tail. It seemed that he had been anxiously guarding the entrance, unable to bring himself to break down the door and enter. As soon as he saw Talia, Khan let out a thin whine, and Talia gently soothed him before leading him inside the building. Because of his enormous size, it was difficult for him to pass through the narrow doorway, but after twisting his body this way and that several times, Talia was finally able to get Khan inside. Talia led the direwolf, which nearly filled the cramped space, into the relatively spacious dining room and looked toward Tiuran. She was placing a pot over the hearth and brewing herbal tea. There's a patient upstairs who has difficulty moving. I'll go up and check on their condition for a moment, so please rest here. Tiuran said as she poured the brewed liquid into a small cup. Talia nodded indifferently. Tiuran poured a little herbal tea into a small wooden cup and handed it to her as well. Then climbed the wooden stairs. Talia sipped the tea Tiuran had given her while repeatedly looking outside through the window. She could see the gathered people gradually dispersing one by one. Just as she was about to rise from her seat, thinking it was probably safe to go outside now, the front door suddenly opened and two slender girls with sun-browned faces entered the house. "Mother, I'm back." The girl who had called out cheerfully suddenly spotted Khan, who filled the kitchen, and Talia, and her eyes widened as though she had been struck by lightning. Talia set down the cup in her hand and looked back and forth between the two. One of the girls, who seemed to finally come to her senses, opened her mouth in shock before hurriedly bowing at the waist. Grand Duchess." The other girl also seemed to realize her identity a moment later and hurriedly bowed her head. "Why, Your Highness, what brings you to our house?" "I followed Tiuran here." Talia replied indifferently, pointing her chin toward the narrow staircase. "She's up there, so if you have something to discuss with her, go upstairs." "Ah. I suppose she's treating Mother. She hasn't been able to move from her bed at all since injuring her back a week ago." The girl rambled on without being asked, alternately looking at Talia and Khan before nervously swallowing. Seeing that she looked as though she might faint at any moment, Talia let out a deep sigh. "We're not going to eat you, so don't worry about us and just do what you need to do." Both girls blinked simultaneously. They seemed a little bewildered by the way she was acting as though she were the owner of the house. Talia paid them no mind and stood up, tidying her disheveled clothes. She was about to head toward the front door with Khan when she saw Tiuran coming down the stairs, having just finished her treatment. Talia gave Tiuran a slight nod of her chin. "Finished the treatment?" "Yes, it's all done." "Then let's go back together. It seems to have gotten a little quieter outside now." Tiuran hesitated as though she were debating something, then eventually nodded. Talia gave her a puzzled look for a moment, but soon led Khan outside the building. By then, the street had noticeably become quieter. Apparently, the guards had called in the security forces and dispersed the onlookers. Talia called over one of the soldiers lined along the road and instructed him to have the carriage brought over. Not long afterward, a large four-wheeled carriage stopped in front of the house. After pushing Khan inside, Talia turned around to hurry Tiuran along. Then she frowned when she saw Tiuran standing at the entrance and whispering with the two girls. Tiuran whispered something into one of the girls' ears about whatever they were discussing, then took a small medicine bottle, about the size of her thumb, from inside her clothing and held it out. "Come to think of it," she said, she came to deliver a sensitive kind of medicine. Could those two girls be the clients? Talia tilted her head. Neither of the girls had shown the slightest sign of illness, both looked lively and full of energy. Curious, Talia cautiously approached them from behind. Then Tiuran's soft voice reached her ears faintly. "Don't use more than 3 drops at a time. It's harmless to the human body, but taking too much can put a strain on the heart. I'll be careful, so don't worry. And you must only use it when the two of you are alone. Otherwise." "What kind of medicine is it, anyway?"